regretful people.
Well, welcome to the planning board meeting for April 17th, town of Kennebunkport. So let me first get started by taking attendance, and Scott is missing, but he told me he couldn't make it. He's elsewhere, so that means one of you two guys down the end gets to vote, as usual. Okay.
That feels special.
The minutes. Now, I need, anybody see any problems?
No, I'll make a motion to accept the amended minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay. So,
Agreed.
Approve?
approve?
Approve.
Approved.
Okay, good.
You're next.
Well, that brings us to item number 4. First 3 items on our, agenda have been delayed either at the request, well, mostly at the request of the submitters, which brings us to 670 Kings Highway, Walsh Construction, which is, I don't see Mr.
Norm Chamberlain here from Walsh Engineering. I'm not Werner.
Yes, I can tell. You don't look like him.
No, I don't.
Thanks
a
for the
little.
clarification.
So I have, this is an application for 670 Kings Highway. It's replacement of a non-conforming structure in the Goose Rock zone. I'm here with Brian Lucier, the applicant, and Eric Peterson, the architect, who's going to speak to some of the calculations later on. So if we could go to the second slide, please. The subject property is identified as tax map 34, lot 2-13, has approximately 3,134 square feet or 0.07 acres. Property is zoned Goose Rocks, and it's also in the shoreline zone. Next slide, please. Most of the lot is not in the flood zone. The red line towards the top of the page is the AE zone coming in from the river and back, and the line down on Kings Highway is the limit of the AO zone that comes in over the dune in front. So we're up above that, but we, do have a little bit there in the back of the building, but it's an AE, so we're up above that flood elevation. The current development includes a house, driveway, decks, patio, totaling about 1,557 square feet of impervious, or 49.7% of the lot. The existing house is non-conforming, is in the side setbacks and the rear setback. It does not exceed the front setback. The property is serviced by existing water and sewer connections. We're planning on reusing those, assuming the connections and everything are still good. We did not get a tie card from water or sewer on that, but the lot is very small and the building's in exactly the same place, so we should be able to use those. Next slide, please. The proposed development is a new 2-story house. There's a garage in the left side there, and then there's a deck with it's got lattice to kind of enclose it a little bit. Next slide, please. The footprint of the proposed building fits within the footprint of the existing structure, except towards the front. We are pushing it out a little bit towards the front setback line to fill that. There was a question about lighting. We're going to meet chapter 245 for lighting. It's just going to be the usual, residential lights, no spotlights and things like that. Already said that. The next slide, please. So this is a section through the lot. We calculated what the average grade was. We could have a we calculated that 11.51 feet, so that makes the maximum height of 30 feet, an elevation of 41.51. The house is on, next slide, please. I'm sorry, we'll get to that one later, but the house only goes up to 41.25, so it's 3 inches below that maximum height. The impervious lot coverage, next slide, please. We've calculated that, and we're gonna be about 101 square feet less than what was there previously.
So is that a typo on your
Typo,
form here that tells you that you're doubling the impervious from 13.6 to 27?
that must be a typo, yeah.
Okay.
Because I looked at it again this afternoon, and it's only 101 square feet under what was there. I can't read that slide, but it says that our impervious is going down to 46.5% from 49.7.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. This is the volume calculations. Eric's going to talk about those to show that we're not increasing the volume by more than the 30% allowed by the ordinance.
I'm Eric Peterson from Peterson Design Group. We're actually reducing the volume of the building within the setback non-conforming areas. We're shrinking the footprint in the areas that are non-conforming on the left and the right of the building and in the rear. We're pulling it in so that it's more conforming. So technically,
I'm getting stuck because how much of this lot is in the shoreland zone?
Almost the entire lot is in shore.
Okay. So right now, it's non-conforming
is,
all over because you're covering more than 20%.
well, and it's non-conforming because part of the buildings are within the side and rear yard setbacks too.
Also.
Yes, right.
Also.
So we're making it less non-conforming by lot coverage.
With respect, yes, that's right. I saw
And we're
that.
making the footprint of the building less non-conforming in the areas of non-conformance on the side and rear yard setbacks. That's why the volume and area of non-conforming structure actually shrinks. It's not an expansion.
I'm sorry, I got lost.
So can we go back a slide that shows the,
You're making a distinction between the nonconformance due to setback and the nonconformance due to lot coverage.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm the setback guy. He's the lot coverage guy.
All right. So who's better? All right.
So I'm
I'm
talking
just saying, but
about,
that's what I'm trying to tease apart as you're saying it.
okay, so that's a fair clarification.
It's okay.
I'm talking about the footprint of the building with regard to how it sits in respect to how it is non-conforming now. We're making it less non-conforming by reducing the footprint of the building on the left and the right, and
Yes.
also therefore reducing the volume and area of the building that is non-conforming. Does that make sense? Within setbacks.
And it's still
Yes.
within the even though you're moving it forward, it's still within the setback for moving it forward.
Correct. The footprint is smaller than it was.
Thank you.
In the area that's non-conforming, and what we did do is you can see on the left-hand existing conditions drawing, it's a lot more of a long rectangle than we're proposing.
Right.
So there's a little bit of area in the front yard that is available to capture that is conforming. So that's why the new house is more of a heading toward a square, you know what I'm saying?
Well done.
So we're capturing the few feet of front yard setback that are available to us,
And you came in on the left side.
and the right side and the back.
To make it less
Make it less non-conforming,
Non-conforming.
that's right.
For the setbacks.
for the
Correct.
setbacks. He's the setback guy.
And so this lump of clay that we have,
setback
right,
guy,
we squeezed it in on the ends, pushed it in on the back, pushed it out a little bit in the front, in a
squeezed it up.
conforming way. And it all fits under the 30-foot height restriction, and we raised the building to make it respond to the proposed flood elevation.
You're trying to optimize the living space and pay attention to the setbacks and take
Trying-
advantage of the 30%.
Trying to make
where it makes sense.
Exactly, and we didn't even take advantage of the 30% because we
Well,
didn't.
because of the other constraints,
So
like
how,
height and width and front.
There's just
Yeah.
only so many places to go.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
so how high is this building going to be?
just under 30 feet.
That
above
includes
grade.
3 inches.
above the grade?
That's from average original grade.
Okay.
Yep.
Including the cupola?
And that doesn't count, actually. That's an
Okay.
appurtenance under the zoning ordinance definitions. Because it doesn't contain a living space or living area, like a chimney.
Okay.
Does anyone
But the
have any-
lot itself is not conforming too, because it's under an acre of size.
Oh, yeah, like every other Goose Rocks lot, it's under 40,000 square feet by
Right.
a long shot, so that's right.
Any other questions about the volume?
Volume?
Not about the volume, but I would appreciate it if we could, at a pace I can digest, say, the setback is X, and it's going to be Y. Like, in other words, I'm non-conforming now. I'm at, how far are you from the sides? And what are you going to be, you know,
I got that on your site plan
numerically?
probably, right? Does one of the site plans you have on your PowerPoint show that?
I don't think it calls it out.
In other words, assuming this all goes smoothly and we approve this, and you've been here before,
Yeah.
you know what, you've paid careful attention, I'm sure we're gonna get to that point. But I'd like to be, I can envision writing a findings of fact that says, the lot right now, the structure and the lot are non-conforming in these ways.
Yes. Almost
This-
every way, yeah.
This, it's at X feet right now, and they've done X minus 2, right? It's at
I
this,
can-
you know, so that's where that's where I wanna end up.
I can give you those numbers.
That'd be great, yeah.
Okay?
You mean-
I don't have them tonight. That's the problem.
Yep, anybody
But
have
I
any-
can say that
Pay attention to that next time.
this proposed building is gonna be further from the side lot lines and further from the back lot line than the existing structure.
I-
And
That's,
conforming,
that's
can
coming
give it-
through clear.
And I can give you those numbers.
Oh,
Yes,
he was the setback guy.
and conforming on the front lot, on the front lot line.
yes, it's actually gonna be a little,
A little closer to the road.
closer, but still conforming.
Correct.
Which is great.
That's right.
The height currently is what? Big change in height, right?
It did change in height.
Big,
Yes.
big change in height is
Not-
what I'm
not-
gathering.
Not big.
It's going to
It's
30.
a two-story building, but we also have picked it up for the sand dune and flood requirements.
That's really the difference, is
It's
in
mostly
relation,
that.
how
It's-
it sits in relation to the grade, to, you know, right now, it's one step off the ground into the house.
It's
Yes,
gonna be,
That's what we've done, is the house hasn't gotten so much taller as a house. It's that we raised it to meet the proposed
Right.
flood zone.
so same question there, the before and after.
The
You told
delta.
me that the height is satisfactory now, but if I'm a neighbor, I wanna know,
That's on the,
how much bigger did it get?
that's on my, one of the front elevation that I have in your
so
PowerPoint.
go back, keep going back. One more. That
There.
one right there.
On the right-hand side, there's a notation that I can't read from here.
It says 41.25 feet from average grade.
What was, I think,
From average,
in terms of writing the findings of fact for the board, if you can show, here's what it was, here's what it's gonna be, it makes it really easy peasy.
so average original grade is 11.51.
Okay,
Elevation 11.51. We're proposing the existing house, we're proposing the proposed house, the first floor elevation is at 17 feet. And so from average original grade 11.51, the max allowed ridge height is therefore 41.51.
Got it.
So 11.51 plus 30 feet.
right,
And we're proposing 41.25.
that's coming through loud and clear.
Okay,
Hold it right there. So the average grade, 11.51, what is the current height relative to that?
we can get you that.
That's all, yeah.
Yeah, the before and after.
Yeah, that's all.
You have that, I'm sure, in your
Yeah,
numbers.
I think it's in the survey plan.
Again, just picture trying to capture the results of this. We went
I will
through
give you a
the before and after.
So you can fill in your
Yeah.
boxes, yeah.
On the boxes.
And again, I just try to put myself in the mind of an abutter, and I don't know, how much is it going up? And regardless of whether it's going up because you're keeping it out of the waters
Yeah.
or not. It's just, how's my view gonna change? I'd be interested.
So the raising part that, I picked it up 5 feet or whatever, that doesn't count in the volume, right?
'Cause
So
it's
it's
just-
the base floor, that's just, you've lifted it, but that 4 or 5 foot times the square footage doesn't count.
Because it's
in your
not habitable space under there.
Right.
In fact, yeah, there's,
It's a hybrid foundation because it crosses the dune from front dune to back dune.
Right.
So part of it's on a pier foundation, part of it's on a crawl space flow-through foundation.
Okay.
But it does
Make it
affect,
more
it does
Okay,
affect the height.
But even with moving it up, it's not, you're not capturing all that extra volume that's against
Right.
your 30%. It's only actually what
Right.
the living space.
But it does count against the height requirement.
Right,
Correct.
absolutely, you
So
can't go over.
Yeah.
So, you said that the first floor elevation was 17 feet,
Elevation 17,
EL 17. Is that the top of the first floor?
that's finished floor, first floor, yeah.
And so, the bottom of the first floor is like 16, because like 1 foot thick, I guess. So is the 16 2 feet above the base flood elevation?
Is 13 there.
13? Okay, thank
actually,
you.
what is driving it is the sand dune rules. We have to have
Ah.
3 feet clear below the
Gotcha.
horizontal structure.
Okay,
There's a lot of
Great.
layers,
And
yeah.
yeah,
the
all right,
flood zone fits in under that.
yeah.
It's
So
higher,
the,
it's higher because of the DEP mandate
for,
rather than FEMA.
for the sand
And
dunes?
in
Okay.
actuality, the flood zone is at 10, and that's the new, the 2023 Lomer flood zone elevation.
Oh, it's
and-
moved to 10 from 13?
Yes,
Okay.
Okay,
so
Alrighty.
it's right up in the backyard, but it really doesn't affect the building because it's.
it's the
all-
sand dune that controls.
It's the sand dune controls. His foundation, though, underneath the part of the house that's not on the sand dune, has flood vents. So
Okay.
even though it doesn't necessarily need it,
All right.
they're there.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you just had some practical experience here with the storms of last winter, so you've got a gauge on where the written numbers compare to your current reality.
That's right.
Okay,
And so we do have our sand dune permit from the state. It was a permit by rule. We got that in March, just about a month ago. And if there's any questions.
I have a few questions. I'm looking at the design of this house, and I'm seeing what look like picture windows with no overhangs, which basically invite bird strikes. You're in shoreland area, you're in a place where piping plovers nest, migrate. You look like you have a lot of windows that don't have screens on them on the outside.
I see one.
Well,
Do you see more than that?
well, on the front of the house, I'm looking at the picture window, and then I'm looking to the right where I see some bigger windows.
Those are double hung, so those will have screens.
Those will have screens. Do you
The rest-
have any sliding glass doors to the deck upstairs, for example?
It's under an overhang.
It's under an overhang.
And the remaining windows that you see on the first floor and the second floor are double hungs.
Okay, what about that picture window?
It's a small percentage of our overall glass that doesn't have a screen.
Well, when you light that up at night and you get migrating birds, what you're going to do is invite them to crash right into that.
I guess I'd ask the homeowner what his opinion is on that. What if we did some sort of
Audubon,
like a trim hood or something
Striping.
over the window?
well, there are many ways to avoid bird strikes. Audubon, on their sites, New York has recommendations. I believe Portland's working on that. But if you just go to the websites, you'll find lots of ways that architects alleviate the idea of having birds strike windows. The biggest problems are those big picture windows where they see right through, and especially at night, and they think it's a clear alley, and they just crash right in. That's the big problem they're having in cities, of course, at night. But also, residences are causing a lot of the problem, and they're causing 30 to 40% of the strikes that we see in residential areas, those big picture windows, or windows without screens, large areas. So you're in an area where shorebirds migrate because there are clear areas, clear corridors, and you've got lots of different species of shorebirds. We've lost 70% of our species in this country, species of birds, mostly due to strikes. And a lot of that is residential strikes. So I'm looking to see that there's some way to alleviate that. You can put stripes on windows as long as they're on the outside. Audubon has those dot tapes you can put on, but those are only temporary situations where, it has to be kept up. Silhouettes of hawks do not work.
We'll take that into consideration.
I would like to see that. I have no other questions.
Okay, so I just have the one that's on the first page of your application, first page of your application for site plan review, where it says existing impervious is 13.6 and proposed is 27.8. Now, I know that's the wrong number, because, but you need to fix it.
Okay. I'll double check that.
Okay. So, all right.
No, I'm fine.
I have a clarification from the board, just because I haven't encountered this one before. This is a tear down, rebuild, but not taking advantage of the 30% expansion. Does that mean that someone at a future point in time could apply for and do a 30% expansion?
I think they're doing some.
They are doing an expansion.
Expansion of,
Volume?
It's the volume and the footprint they have. They're decreasing the volume, but they're increasing the footprint.
decreasing the footprint, I thought.
No.
They're decreasing the impervious coverage.
Yeah, Galen,
Impervious
decreasing,
coverage, yeah.
decreasing the surface coverage, decreasing the footprint of the house, correct?
Correct.
And the volume is still,
The volume is going up by how much?
Going up.
It's not going up in the non-conforming area.
But I don't
It's
know.
it's conforming for most of the building. Most of that building is conforming to setbacks. It's all within shoreline zone, but most of the building is conforming to setbacks. We're proposing to pull it in on the areas of the building that are non-conforming, to make it less non-conforming. And we're not, so therefore, there's technically no expansion within the non-conforming areas.
Yeah, but even if I was completely conforming, I'm only allowed to expand 30%
If you're non-conforming.
if you're non-conforming.
if you're non-conforming. Yeah, but I thought it was still
The whole
saying we're
thing's
non-conforming.
non-conforming because
We
it's
still
in
take the volume,
Shoreline.
we don't divide the volume into non-conforming and
If you're within
conforming.
75 feet, or if you're in setbacks, if you're within a setback. The shoreline zone is a land use,
Right.
situation, not volume area
zoning.
calculation. That's not conforming by setbacks, or in this case, we're not within 75 feet.
Are you looking for the number, the portion of the building in the non-conforming building that has been, well, you said
I'm back
it's
to
less.
what we are now,
Yeah,
and what, the volume of that,
Yeah.
both non-conforming, conforming, however you wanna put it, setbacks. And I got a new structure that I'm putting in, what's the volume of that?
We haven't shown the volume of what the conforming area is, because it's all conforming.
Conforming. You can do whatever you want.
That's right.
I'm just
So
curious, can someone come back a year from now, 10 years from now, and apply for an expansion in the non-conforming area and take advantage of that 30%?
Yeah, if they didn't take advantage of the 30%, they
Right.
can. It's a one-time.
I don't know where you'd go, because you're up against height restrictions.
That's just, it's a matter of theory, I don't
I
know,
don't know where you'd put it.
but someone could.
I think he just
I
said
mean,
it
the
could.
only place I can see where you'd put it is on the deck, but that was a deck before. I don't
Right.
think you would let us put building there.
I don't see why you would, but I'm
Right,
just curious,
right.
could someone?
No,
If you don't
I
take
get it.
advantage of that when you tear it down?
So,
Apparently not an issue.
George, you're hitting on something, though, that is niggling with me here, and I'd have to go look up the definition. But what you're saying to me, having me understand, is that the nonconformance of the structure, the fact that this is on a nonconforming lot, undersized, that doesn't affect the 30%. The fact that it's in the shoreland zone
Doesn't affect it.
doesn't affect it.
No.
I could expand it, I could expand the volume in the shoreland zone as long as it's conforming to the lot.
This has a building envelope, that's the distinction. Some projects that we've come before you with,
Yeah.
the house just beyond the intersection of, I forget the number, but just beyond the intersection of Kings Highway, Jeffries Way,
Yeah.
and New Bedford Road.
Redoing that garage.
It's a new construction that had a cottage behind it.
Yeah.
That lot had no building envelope, because it's all within 75 feet from the creek. So that's why, in that case, we were before the planning board.
But again, you were setback related, not the fact that it was just in the 250-foot.
Correct. It had no building envelope, so the fact that we wanted to do a 30% expansion, it was completely non-conforming, where this house is mostly conforming because it has a true building envelope to work with.
I understand.
Does that answer your question?
No.
It gives me enough to go do some homework, that's all, to make sure I understand it better.
Sounds like a
This is-
case manager.
It's intricate. Yeah, I don't mind taking the
There's
case.
a lot of layers to this one,
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I mean, Goose Rock's Beach, it's,
Everything.
but I mean FEMA, DEP, non-conforming, side yard setbacks, height restriction, elevating the building, you know, different
Dunes.
classifications for sand dune, yeah. there's a-
Planning board.
Planning board.
and it's a changing environment too. I mean, not just legally, but, I mean, physically.
Go
This-
back
this
to the
lands-
first picture of the house, and I think you'll agree that it's an improvement.
Oh, yeah, no, that's not, I'm not
And
contesting
go
that at
inside
all.
the house, and you'll agree it's an improvement.
I just think this is it's a challenging, an interesting challenge, just
It's a puzzle.
to understand it and to go optimize it and live within the spirit of the place where you've chosen to build a home too, so,
I think I understand the situation with the 30%.
thank you. Me too.
Thanks.
Okay, good.
Mike or George?
I'm good.
No, all set.
Mike,
I'm good.
you're good. Okay. Well,
Would you take a motion?
I would take a motion.
I think we should consider that this application is complete.
I'll second that.
Okay, do we have some items they need to bring with them?
Subject to, yeah, the update, yeah.
Well, there was some information that was promised with regard to the before and after nonconformities, the specifics of the nonconformities, the clarification of the application page figure that sort of suggests that it's not consistent with the reduction in coverage that the detail shows us. Was there anything else?
A typo.
Well, there was the impervious
typo, but,
area
Typo.
on
On
the
the
first,
application page?
Yes.
Yeah, that's this.
Windows.
And,
Windows.
and some homework, please, on that, on the picture window to see what can be done to help our feathered friends. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion on the
Motion
floor.
on the
I
floor.
guess.
so I s-
And
okay, I
seconded.
still seconded, you know.
So,
Do you want to poll the vote?
yeah. call-
Yes, I would agree with my motion.
I approve.
Okay, I approve.
Approve.
One of you guys.
Approved.
Okay. Good.
Thank you
So
all.
thank you, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks with a few more things, and then also. we'll,
you'll
at
put
that
me down
point,
for- Case manager?
You volunteering?
Yeah, sure.
Wow.
I haven't done one in a while.
Okay, good deal.
That was
All
easy.
right.
It's the first Wednesday next month. I don't know the date, but
I think it's the first, isn't it the first? 1st of May?
I think it's the 1st of May.
Oh.
no.
There you go.
Really?
That'll be a public hearing.
22,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, May 1st. May Day, as they say.
When do you move in? You would do the work over the summer?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
right.
you. So that
Thank you.
brings us to the last item in here, which is item number 240304, 293 Goose Rock Road / Nonantum. And there's Tina.
Well, good evening. How is everybody this evening?
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here and for, again, reviewing our application. Just to reiterate, the proposal in front of us was the Nonantum and Black Rock Farms has developed a partnership in which we are utilizing the land to grow fruits and vegetables, which we have been fortunate enough to use as a farm share for our staff, donate to food pantries. And what has evolved is the concept and the want for us to be able to have small events at the facility. We've, in the initial review, we spoke about our lighting, about our music, we talked about transportation, and we talked about the seasonality of the events that we're looking at. We are looking at mid-June to basically the beginning of October. Obviously, everything's very weather dependent, as we all know. So during the initial review, you had asked that we define a little bit more and be a little bit more specific, because I think that our information was a little evasive. And so I had sent a letter off yesterday. I apologize, I was on vacation. I just got back in a few hours ago, so I apologize, Galen, for the delay in getting that off to you. But I had submitted a letter addressing those specific issues that were asked at the last meeting. Do you have copies of that letter that was sent in?
Yes.
Okay. So just to reiterate to our friends who are here for the public hearing, I had wrote to the planning board, and during the initial review, it was suggested that we outline a few of the details for our anticipated event business. So for the number of people, events shall average 50 people. Events that exceed 70 guests, we will limit to 6 per season. And of course, any of these events, regardless if they're 50 or 70, would only be at the permission of the property owner, who is Helene Lawant. The additional information was talking about the noise. So in addressing the entertainment primarily will utilize acoustical music. Occasional use of bands or DJs may occur during the larger events, at which times we would notify all neighbors in advance and would adhere to the town's noise ordinances. Events using amplified music beyond 5 p.m. will not exceed 6 per season and not more than twice in any given 30-day period. So that would be 2 a month. That is a really high watermark. We're truly anticipating doing 3 of those a season. But you asked us to put a maximum, and so that's the maximum that Helene and her family are comfortable with. We, of course, are in receipt of a few letters from the abutters as I'm addressing this letter. And I did want you to know that we did have a meeting back on April 9th out at Black Rock Farm. We were very fortunate to have almost a dozen of her abutters attend. And the gathering, I felt, was very positive. We addressed a lot of questions. We listened to a lot of comments. And I think that there was very, very healthy conversations in addressing these questions and concerns. As we feel it's incredibly important to maintain harmonious relationships with the neighbors. We've agreed on regular check-ins and complete transparency in our operations in order to ease our neighbors' minds. When I read through the letters, we'd received three letters from the abutters. Two, of course, being very concerned about the noise, as they are a direct abutting property. And I want you to realize that the Nonantum makes integrity-based decisions, as I said to them at that gathering. And when I say that in the vein that we are good neighbors at the Nonantum to our neighbors around the Nonantum. We would intend to do the exact same thing with the neighbors surrounding Black Rock Farm. We do not want to cause any disruption to their quality of life. And I realize that the planning board is posed with the decision to take a look at whether or not this will cause a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of the abutting property as a result of noise, vibrations, fumes, odor, dust, glare, or other cause. I mean, the meaning of detrimental is tending to cause harm, and that is absolutely not our intention in any way, shape, or form. So I would ask that you take a look at this agreement as a opportunity for us to be able to work with BlackRock to be able to provide a revenue stream for them while in keeping in character with, as I love the letter from Russ Grady, I thought was so well written. And he wrote as part of his letter saying that he really wants to make sure that we have our part of Kennebunkport country. And that's exactly what we want to help maintain, is to be able to maintain that farm country atmosphere. But without impacting our neighbors.
Well, I've read those letters, and I know I've experienced where I've lived before, something like this come in. And I know we've also dealt with Hidden Pond when their restaurant wanted to expand completely, not just seasonally, but throughout the year. There are questions about noise, and there were a lot of questions. That's a different situation in that it's in the woods. It's already a restaurant that was put in there and functioning and mostly indoors. I do not agree with Russ Grady that there's any problem with traffic. I went past there today again, and as far as I can see, there's plenty of sight distance on those roads, and you're going to be shuttling people in primarily. So I do not see a problem with traffic or any kind of collision-making situation.
Thank you.
But I do have a problem with, and frankly, with weddings and wedding parties, because I know what they're like. And my gut feeling is to limit, one, the number of people, to limit the noise. I would absolutely not allow any amplified music, none whatsoever. I think it should stay acoustic. You're in the country, it's open area, things, noise does travel. And I think I would limit the hours. I'd like to see it, especially in the summer, I'd like to see it cut off at 10 o'clock.
I apologize. That was a part of the initial application and letter that I sent in. I just did not reiterate that. We had no anticipation of going beyond 10 o'clock.
But these are conditions that we would write in.
Certainly.
Consider writing in, basically. And I think there should be a limit to the number of events that you can have, and then we'll see how it goes. This is a conditional use, even though it's free enterprise zone. I think I would like to see it limited. I don't know how the other planning board members feel.
To me, that kind of initial limit, you see how it goes, and then you could always come back and ask for additional. If once we have a season or two under our belts, and then be able to say, yes, it's all working, we're good, we can increase the number of events to some number. I think that's a fair good.
You say you've already had a few events out there.
We had two.
You've had 2 events.
We did.
Have you received any feedback from the abutters about it, your neighbors?
I personally have not. I don't know if Helene, have you had it?
I need you up at the microphone if you.
I think that for the ones that we had, almost nobody knew we did it.
Okay.
I have had, we had a wedding there, one of Adam and Ashley's friends got married there. We had that, and we've had 3 weddings there in 3 different years throughout the years.
And how many people attended those wedding events?
Most weddings and Tina knows more than I do about this, it's about 150 if they're gonna get a tent.
How many did you have at the
Yeah, but how many did you?
farm?
The 3 at the farm was about 150. That's a comfortable number to me. A lot more than 150, and I get
But they were
nervous.
in a tent?
They were in a tent behind, I don't know if you know the farm, but it's not in the front pasture, but in the back pasture behind the pond.
Did you transport all of those people there?
No, we parked in the field for them, and we did have the fire department come out and talk to us about egress and entrance, right? Yeah. Whoops.
But moving forward, those are the 3 events that they had out at the farm in the last 3 years. Moving forward, we would be shuttling people in to avoid any of the traffic on the smaller events, and also it could be as a condition on any of the larger events as well.
Yeah, I took a
No.
lot of like guidance from Tina about that kind of stuff, and it's better for us to do that, to have people shuttled in. and
But
out.
you're going to have people outside, not within a tent. You're planning for having people outside,
Underneath the pergolas.
yeah.
Under the pergolas. But I wanted to mention quickly about that we have 2 greenhouses, 50-foot long greenhouses. And I think one of them, we were facing inclement weather. So we had to we cleaned out the greenhouse and we did a long table in there. We can't do more than 50 people, really. Because if it rains,
Yeah.
it's not good. So that's our contingency. For a 150 wedding, we say you gotta have a tent.
Right.
Yes, and in regards to that, that's where, in one season, we're saying we would do no more than 6 of that. But as you can see, what Helene is saying, in the past 3 years, she's only had 3 weddings out there. Our intention is not to promote large weddings in any way, shape, or form. Our purview here is these much smaller events that would be under the pergolas or in the greenhouse.
Like rehearsal dinners and.
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but when you put this application in, you're talking about mostly, unless it's inclement weather, being outside.
Yes.
Okay, but now you're talking about a larger event. Are you planning on tents now?
There's two different conversations. What we're asking for is that we're going to be able to do events that are gonna be outdoors underneath the pergolas. Those events are going to be 50 people or under. If there were to be events above that size, they would be very limited in the numbers throughout the season. For instance, Helene's daughter's getting married in September, out at the, I'm sorry, Tracy's daughter, niece, apologize, is getting married out at the farm. That's gonna be separate from what the Nonantum is doing.
So this is separate from your application?
Yes.
Okay, no tents in your application?
is correct.
Okay,
That is
that's what I wanted to know.
I apologize if that wasn't clear.
Okay.
But that is an interesting point, is that from a neighbor's point of view, the Nonantum wants to contract to be able to hold X many events over the course of the summer. But Black Rock Farm may, in fact, also hold some events under the special permitting situation as they've been doing, in addition to that. So the total number of events that the neighbors are experiencing is larger than the number that Nonantum is holding.
Oh, I see, I apologize, I'm hearing the confusion. You're absolutely correct. What we are planning, the Nonantum is planning on doing is only the smaller events.
Right.
If there are to be larger events, that would be a Black Rock Farm event, which would fall under special permitting.
In there, you can only have so many on so many days.
Correct.
It's a 120 day or something like that,
Per applicant, right.
per
So
applicant, yeah.
I'm just saying that Black Rock Farms
That would
will
be in
still
there.
be able to, in addition to whatever the Nonantum's doing,
Right.
do additional events, so, or not. I'm not quite sure what the ordinance,
Yeah.
what,
But they would follow a different process to
that's what I think.
get those approved or covered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they don't come to the planning board,
Yeah.
they're not
no,
changing it to be a restaurant.
and I guess I agree with what Nina was saying about the acoustic versus amp music, because that will carry greatly, so,
What?
if you're a neighbor, you're definitely gonna hear amplified music,
Yeah, I know it will.
yeah, versus
know.
acoustic.
She knows it well, because she's done it on the.
I can hear amplified music from the Nonantum.
You may,
Depends on
Tina,
how
you
clear
may-
the night is.
You may be in the best position of all of us to say, as a practical matter, can you help us understand what conforming to the town's noise ordinance means to an abutter?
What that means is that there are certain decibel levels that we would have to adhere to.
But I don't understand dBs, I'm a neighbor, you know, what does
Thought
it
you were a
mean?
physics major.
Am I gonna hear it or not?
I'm not a physics major, I can't help. No, you're not.
Help me out.
If we separate the events into the smaller farm-to-table, rehearsal dinner,
Yeah.
small weddings, those are gonna be acoustically bound. If Black Rock were to have a larger event, which would fall under a different category,
Separate issue.
that would be a separate issue.
I'm just saying,
So for what
Let me
we're
reframe it.
discussing here, which is your stuff, not Helene's, then acoustic is fine, you don't have to
They're
have.
gonna hear a radio in their back, like the radio in their backyard. They're gonna have if at all, they'll have, it would be acoustical music.
Yeah, so I think you sort of confused the two, you,
I think
in
we
your letter,
have.
kind of confused the two things.
I do believe we did.
Yeah.
Because we just wanted to be we're trying to be transparent in what we're
Right.
doing out there.
Yes.
And so if that is confusing, I apologize. We want to be sure that the neighbors understand exactly what we're doing and have no qualms, and I'm happy to provide a list of dates and events, times, number of people, et cetera, to them. We do that at the Nonantum to our neighbors as well.
So does this mean I don't get to? we
Okay.
don't get
I have a few questions.
Yes, you can.
Are you still going,
I don't
Nina?
understand that part.
I'll tell you in a second. You're totally fine.
I think, you have another question?
It seems that if you're in a butter,
Yes.
that, and we are all of us abutters in one way or another. There are a couple of factors that are variables in the condition. So there's number of people,
Yep.
the hours could be conditional, negotiated,
Sure.
amplification, non-amplification, the number of events. And it just, if it came to like, well, we don't want this, we don't want that, then maybe there's adjustments that can be made along the way, see how that goes, and then come back for it in the future when everyone is happy and everything. Other thing, when someone has an event with you, I presume they sign an agreement.
That's correct.
So the agreement would also have something stipulated about the nature of this event. And how is that policed? Do you guys have bouncers at these things?
It's, in the two that we've had, they were 24 people apiece.
Right.
And they were dinner parties.
Dinner party, different thing.
Correct.
I'm sure that in your tenure at the Nonantum, that at least once there's been a rowdy guest at a wedding. Sometimes things happen. Who would be in charge of the event to handle situations like that? Is that part of the agreement? I'm just curious.
Yes, of course. I mean, there's always going to be an event coordinator that would be on property to make sure that everything is running smoothly. If there was ever any kind of an issue, we can either call the police or make sure that there's no if there's any issues, we can call in some backup on our side if we need to. Again, when the kind of events that we're looking to have out there are smaller in nature. This is the more upscale, a farm-to-table feel that's going to attract a more discerning clientele, if you will. Whereas, to Nina's point, when you have a larger wedding, which we deal with all the time, it's a much different situation, and we have security on hand, who we hire, et cetera, and then use police as backup. But I wouldn't anticipate the need for that out there. If there were an event that warranted it, of course, we would make sure that it's there.
Well, I'd say that any event that involved relatives, probably you need some backup.
And alcohol, and alcohol, and whatever else is legal in this state.
But can I read you a list of, I've started to put together something here, and I want to know if these sort of conditions would be acceptable to you. That you're only going to hold events following the farm retail hours.
Yeah, okay.
You're going to shuttle the guests from the hotel to the farm via the hotel's 2 14-passenger vehicles, and the 8 hotel staff and transport vehicles will utilize the farm employees' existing parking spaces. Okay. The hotel is going to provide luxury portable restrooms at the farm and so forth, which will be pumped after each event. No chemical pesticides used during the events, so forth. Lighting will be soft and diffuse for the event and contained to the property. The events will utilize only acoustical music and will not be disruptive to abutting properties. The hours of the events are restricted to between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. The maximum number of events per season, well, we haven't decided that. I'd say 6 to 8 maximum. And the maximum number of people would be 50. Would you be amenable to those conditions?
By the most part, yes. And when I say that, this is why when we were saying our events are going to be on average 50, there's a Sunday afternoon currently that we're discussing having a garden party for a conservation trust. It's on a Sunday from 3 until 5. They're using it as a fundraiser for the trust, and they're hoping to have 150 people there.
Well, would that be under a special event license?
No.
Galen, what would you?
It could. It says non-commercial gathering is mass gathering with primary purpose relates to directly to the expression of philosophical, religious, political, patriotic, or social viewpoints. Generating profits. It's designed for commercial reasons such as generating. It's not primarily designed for commercial reasons such as generating profits or promoting tourism. It'd probably fall under your commercial gathering then, which would be a permit.
And who grants that permit?
So the town administratively grants that through the police chief, fire chief, and the code enforcement office. And we can put conditions on applications as we see fit.
And the only,
It's similar to Circus Schmirkus, that's an annual event. They go in and they get this type of a permit for a fundraiser.
and they just have to be careful about timing because there's a limit of the number per,
1 per 120 days.
yeah, so if you're gonna do that and then do the wedding, yeah, it just time-wise, you'd have to fit your slots.
Okay.
A question for the board. When do you open the floor for the public hearing? Is that after?
Well, right now, we're still discussing, but we will shortly.
Yeah.
But that would not come under what you have indicated in your application. That's why I'm saying that sounds more like a special permit.
Well, no, I think it does fall under what is in the application. It doesn't fall under what is being discussed tonight.
Well, no, because they say they're going to be outside retail hours. and you would have to,
I didn't know that
Normal
the farm
retail.
was open on Sunday afternoons, but,
Farm is always open.
okay, so it isn't outside of normal retail hours.
But sometimes retail places close for special events.
And in fact, that's what would have to
Yeah.
happen.
And this isn't something Nonantum is sponsoring. This is sponsored by you and the Conservation Trust.
Well, it kind of looks like if it's over 50, that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
We just need some clarification from you as well. So I appreciate the questions that you're asking, because this is, obviously, this is a new endeavor for both of us. And, you know, again, our goal here is to be able to support the farm, to have events, to be able to create an additional revenue stream for them.
okay. But what you're talking about, an event where normal farm hours are used for 150 people, that's really outside the purview of what you're asking for normal events that you're going to have, for the majority of the events that you're going to have. And we'd have to write that in as sort of a special thing for 2024, you're allowed one event. It makes more sense to have that as a special permit and to outline what it is that you want to do with the Nonantum regularly in the summer to have those dinners and the conditions under which you could have those dinners. And then if you thought it worked and you wanted to have a couple of special events in 2025, for example, and have one, you could come back to the planning board and ask for that particular exception, or say that this is working. Can we have two events where we have 150 people out during retail hour, normal retail hours, and so forth and so on?
Or additional smaller events, however. it goes.
Can I make I like, Nina, generally what you've said here, but I'm nervous about setting up a situation where we say, oh yeah, the planning board approves this very limited situation, but the neighbors find out that, oh, but there's this other avenue and we're having, I'd like to treat it all under one umbrella. And somebody said earlier, this is like, it's a trial, right? And if we put constraints on this, come back in a year or 2 years or whatever and say, look, this worked out really well. We'd like to modify that condition. And in that spirit, would we consider saying, and one time, we're going to allow up to 150 people. And it needs to be coordinated with the fire chief or whatever conditions we think needs to go with that additional one. And keep it under the umbrella of, this is an Nonantum, they've taken responsibility for this, and there's a trust relationship here. There isn't a side door that other events are set up and, oh no, the planning board didn't have anything to do with that. I'd like to keep it cohesive.
And compare it again, even though it's a different situation, to Hidden Pond. Originally, there was no restaurant at Hidden Pond. Then there was Hidden Pond and a restaurant.
Yeah.
And it was seasonal. And then the restaurant applied
Yep.
and was granted to be all year round.
Right.
And they wanted to be able to do outdoor events and outdoor events in the winter. And so it was incremental, it grew, and they had proven to be good neighbors
And the
throughout that
decisions were
process.
based on experience.
Right.
Right.
That's what we did for Hidden Pond.
So what do you think about that idea about putting in a
And I am
condition that
interested in
allowed
hearing what the
one,
public has to say because they may
event
have
that was
a different
larger
set of
but
ideas.
carefully managed? And then we get a data point on it too.
So to your point, and I appreciate your comments, thank you very much, is I think that's where we're not trying to muddle the situation in any way, shape, or form. We're trying to be transparent so that we're saying to our neighbors, regardless of whether it's Nonantum, and I realize your job is to approve the application before you, but we're trying to say, we would like to do we want to do small events, 50 people or under. There's occasions when there may be other events held at the farm that will exceed that number. We are very comfortable with keeping that to a very low minimum number, so that the neighbors know about that, giving them complete advance notice of when that is. and then come back next year and take a look and see how that went. Because you're right, all of this is conditional.
If you did this with the special permit, you would already be constrained to one every 120 days, one every 4 months. So to put one in here as a condition would not be a big leap.
Yes, it would. It would be adding another big special event because they could go back and say, I want my one every 120 days. I really don't like the idea of writing in a special exception to the rule right now. I would rather they went under a special permit and did that, and then come back and let the neighbors see what they thought about it, rather than to, and it is muddling this application, to say, okay, you can have another event on top of all of this that allows 150 people in certain hours. I'd rather just allow what the application has in it right now, rather than make an exception there.
I'm sorry, I thought, I take your point, but I thought I read the application as if it were applying to allow not just one, but some number, not to exceed 2 per month, that could have 150 people. I think we're talking about putting a constraint on that.
Right, well,
And I'm saying instead of that constraint being 0, and you're only limited to 50, I'd like to put 1 in there. That's how I see it.
And I would also like to bring the point that a 2-hour afternoon garden party is a very different event than an event from 5 until 10 p.m. And so I would hope that there's some allowance for such an event, that we could have something in the afternoon. I mean, I'm specifically talking about this fundraiser for Kennebunkport Conservation
I
Trust.
understand that.
Sure.
But I'm sorry, the application, when it was filed, and it is broad application, but it's not so broad. You were talking about shuttling people. You were talking about limiting hours after retail hours. You were talking about, lighting, soft lighting, that sort of thing, and hours being restricted in the evening. And now you're talking about an event that has 150 people during the day,
Well, it's still shuttled.
It's still a different event. It's a very different thing.
Oh, okay. I thought it was still shuttled.
The conditional use is basically, you're going under a restaurant use, okay? And what you're doing there is you're talking about dinners, and that's fine. But, restaurants do get used for special events, but outdoor special events, usually you get a special permit for that. And I'd like to see that go under a special permit first, rather than just grant an exception to this rule here that we're laying down. I'd rather lay the foundation for your dinners and then have you come back and say, this worked. And the abutters were not upset, and they knew when it was happening. And can we expand this use? Because you're a conditional use, I'd rather just keep it under certain conditions and then let you expand it later on.
Nina, I think that makes sense. What if part of the conditions were, one of the things I listed was hours? What if an event couldn't be more than 50 people if it were between the hours of 5 and 10? But if it were between the hours of 3 and 5 or 1 and 5, it could be a different number of people during the daytime.
Yes, you could do that, but the application was talking about holding events after retail hours so
Right.
that the parking spaces of the employees could be used, and you're going into a different situation.
Yeah.
You're saying as a practical matter, you don't see how you could hold a 150-person event with only the 12 parking spaces that are there.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm
No?
saying that there are certain parameters that were listed in the application that would have to be twisted around for a special event.
That's the part I'm struggling to see. I didn't read it that way, that's all.
I did. I'm
Your application says that you you were applying to have these only after 5 PM.
The-
Is that correct? That's what the application, how
So
the
that we could share
application is
parking,
written?
so that we could share parking spaces.
Yeah.
But if you,
Unless we close.
I was just gonna say, if you were, unless we,
I thought all it said was outside of retail hours, and I took that to mean Sundays might be okay, but I didn't appreciate that. But if you close, then it's outside of retail hours.
well, if they're, correct, and as.
But I still struggle with seeing how you can hold a 150-person event shuttling people.
You use bigger shuttles. I mean, again, on the smaller events, we can utilize our smaller,
Yeah.
14 passenger vans.
Yeah, yeah.
In the event of a larger, event, we would have to hire trolleys.
It is the nature of it is, it's a different event, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, something larger, and again, that's not the
That's
the
not the-
goal here is
the
not
norm.
to do the larger events. I mean, those would be a
Just to your
handful,
point,
if you
Nina.
will.
I
To your
understand.
point, but Nina, to your point,
I understand that. I
Yes. Yep.
understand that,
Yep.
and it could work out very, very well. And then you could come back and say, okay, it's not disturbing the neighbors, we're not holding up traffic, it's the
Mm-hmm.
organization of it is running very smoothly, the fire chief is happy, you know, the police chief is happy.
Sure,
Can we do this,
Yeah.
add this to it? And
Sure.
yes, we can make, just like we did with Hidden Pond when we expanded into the winter hours.
Okay, I wondered if I could delay this half of the,
Let's go to a public.
and go to the
Well,
public hearing.
before we jump into the public hearing, could I ask a couple of questions? So, we talked about noise for a little while.
yes.
Okay, so we also talked about 50 people and 150 people. So you said when you have 150 people, you have a tent. Is that always the case for every 150-person event?
Absolutely.
Okay, so even for your garden party, you're going to have a tent.
Oh, no, that's.
Okay, so it's not always the
Wedding.
case.
Wedding,
I
wedding.
apologize.
So is the tent an effective sound damper so that it doesn't affect the abutters?
We typically have sides on it, on a tent at nighttime, regardless of the weather, just because you're gonna be wanting to protect from mosquitoes or wind or any kind of weather. So yes, I mean, it certainly can be.
It's helpful.
So, okay, so would it be unreasonable to require a tent for any gathering larger than 50 people as a sound damping mechanism?
That would have anything else than acoustical music. I would think so,
For the smaller 50 people.
So I'm making the break at 50.
yes.
Okay, now we're talking about more than 50, have a tent all the time for any gathering more than 50 people, okay?
For a garden party in the afternoon, we wouldn't plan on doing that.
Okay, but that's going to be the subject of a special permit.
That's-
Okay,
that
so
is
we're not going
correct.
to, okay.
That's
In fact, what I'm hearing, I think, is we want to exclude anything larger than 50 people for purpose of this application. Okay, I think that would make that'd be the clean break.
Okay.
If you have 150 people, you make an application for a special meeting or whatever it is, and then we're going to limit this application to 50 people. So then my next question is, so for the 50 people event, you have them outside under your pergolas, right? Okay, well, sound carries, especially when the colder weather, clear weather. So are these pergolas easily bounded? I mean, there are ways to confine sound or to direct sound away from abutters. I haven't been out to your site, so, but I know there are firms that you could consult with on this topic. And I know there's a bunch of ways to do this, which we don't need to discuss right now, but, if you get into this and you discover the abutters are beginning to object, you can hire consultants to help you constrain not only the decibels or the sound pressure, but also the directionality of the sound, okay? So, I don't know exactly where this goes from here, except that, we may want to say that based on abutter feedback, you have to install some sound damping feature. Okay?
Well, and I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, our conversation when we met with the neighbors was a very open dialogue. I mean, they will all have my business card, they'll all have my cell phone number. If there's an event out there and there's some kind of an issue, I want them to call me.
Okay.
Because our greatest concern is to make sure that we're maintaining the integrity of the farm and the integrity of the quality of their life. And so if we have an event and there's an acoustical player that is offensive to someone, I need to know about that so we can figure out what we need to do. I mean, Nina brought up a great point at our last meeting, saying, you know, you can take and you can turn the music, you can do a few things. We certainly could hire a consultant to come out there and take a look at what we need to do. And so I think that this is a give and a take of a conversation, knowing that our intentions are not to impede on their quality of life.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I think we should open the
I'd
public.
like to open the public hearing at this point, so if I could have any member of the public here that would like to speak to this application, and you guys can, so, please. Just identify yourself and name and address.
I wanted to go first. My name is Jennifer Raymond. I am in a butter at 320 Goose Rocks Road. I didn't bring paper and pen, so that's why I volunteered to go first, so I wouldn't forget my points. My biggest concern, and maybe it got ironed out in the conversation here, but Tina, when you first came back, you said there were 6 events with more than 70 people throughout the summer. And they're saying like 50 is the cutoff, so. I just wanted to like voice my concern or clarify that.
No, thank you for asking for the
Yeah.
clarification. What we were asked to do was to put together how many events and what the maximum number of large events would be. And so our proposal is that we would have no more than 6 large events in a season, no more than 2 within a 30-day time period. So it would be 2 per month.
Okay.
So anything else that would be booked would be only under 50 people or under.
Okay. Thank you. And the other point I just want to make, like, we live kind of diagonal, but the sound really does travel, and I just wanted to point that out. Like, we can hear, like, people in the greenhouse talking just on a day, you know? And it's so weird. Like, my boys worked for Helene, and she's a great neighbor, and, you know, like, I don't want this to be like the Neighbors Against Black Rock Farm, because that's not what we're about. But just to recognize that the sound does travel more than you think it would. And, I mean, we love music as neighbors too, but, you know, we live out in the country in that part of Kennebunkport for a reason, you know? We don't like all the busyness and commotion that can be in the summertime. So just to keep that in mind when we're permitting events, such.
So when you say you hear the noise, you know, you can measure sound pressure on your iPhone. There's apps you can get to measure the sound pressure. It'd be helpful if you
Yeah.
wanted to actually
Sure.
record how much sound you're getting.
Yeah, I'll check it out. But yeah, it's funny on like if the wind is just a certain way,
yeah.
clear as day. Like, and you know, it's not like people are yelling or anything. They're just
Okay.
talking.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
And
Well, the wind direction will have an,
yeah, I think those were my only concerns, were like the frequency and the number of people. Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else? Please.
My name is Royal Smith. I live at 294 Goose Rocks Road, the house across the street from the driveway that goes into the farm. I would like to say I have been living there since 1950, with the exception of 1 year when I got married and 2 years when Uncle Sam took me for a ride. I'm supporting what they are doing at the farm because I do not want to see the farm sold and turned into a 20-house development, which would be more traffic and more noise than what they are proposing. So I just wanted you to know that I will see the traffic and it's not gonna bother me. I just like to see the farm stay there for a while, and if this helps them do it, I would like to see it stay that way. And thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Freeland Smith, Royal's brother. I've also lived in the neighborhood since the 50s. Believe me, a lot has changed in those years since the 50s. I look now, probably within a half mile of where I grew up, there may have been 10 houses. Now there's probably more than 100, and I'm sure that has contributed a lot to the traffic, just the people that are living there. With the campground, I can pick on them because you know when the truck goes by with the camper where they're headed for the campground. There's at least 100 of them going through on Friday, and then another 100 coming back through on Sunday when they go and come. But I don't cast stones because I had a camper and I had kids, and I'm sure when I took my kids camping someplace, I drove through their neighborhood, so I'm guilty of it. I'm also guilty of going to weddings that occur outdoors, and I'm sure when I go to those weddings, I'm driving through somebody's neighborhood. So again, I don't cast stones, and considering the amount of traffic that's there now, there's probably, even if people drove there, it would be less than 1% of the total amount of traffic going through. And I don't know if you have experienced it, but motorcycles today, when they go through 20 or 30 at a time on the Goose Rocks Road with inadequate exhaust systems, they make far more noise than they'll wake you up at night. But I too support the farm as my brother. It's one of the last homes in the area that was there when I grew up, and I used to go over there and pick raspberries and stuff when the Adams owned it and stuff like that. And Helene has horses, and I know Helene values those horses, and they are sensitive to sound. So I feel confident that she wouldn't have anything that would disturb the animals or the neighbors. And again, with sound, if it's a foggy day, sound carries. I hear what's going on, and we do occasionally get fog down there, being close to the beach, and the wind. If the wind's out of the west, I don't hear anything. If the wind's out of the east, I do. So how do you control that? You can't control the weather. So there will be times I'm probably going to hear what's going on over there, but as it has been in the past, it's been very reasonable. So I want to see the farm stay. It's one of the last places. There's only a couple of holdouts in that area that still have large tracts of land that haven't sold it for development. So as long as we can hang on to it, and if this helps Helene keep the farm, we all know sitting here, if she wanted to be a millionaire, she could stick a for sale sign out front of the farm, and so be it. So I don't believe she's doing it for the money for personal gain. She's doing it for the neighborhood. And I've been blessed with some wonderful neighbors. It's grown a lot. Very fortunate of the people that have moved in, and very thankful that it's still a great neighborhood, even though it's grown. It still is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here?
Hi, my name is Ann Sanders, and we've owned a family cottage at 336 Goose Rocks Road since the late 50s. And I guess my concern is, I don't think anyone is suspecting that it's not going to be a tasteful type of event, but we want specific constraints put in the application, not subjective like, oh, it's going to be nice, it's going to be quiet. We want basically what Nina said. That's what I want. That the events follow the retail hours, 5 to 10, like in the application. I'm just saying as suggestions, that they will shuttle their guests. We want to see that in the application, because we all know if it's not in there, then people do start driving. Not using the chemicals, the soft lighting. I would prefer to see no amplified music. And I'm a little confused on the events. I get the max 50, but then they're saying 6 bigger ones this season, so I'm a little confused there. Can anyone clarify that? Like you said, 70.
I think your point, though, is that whatever it turns out to be, you want it clearly captured as a condition.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's, I think what a lot of people are worried about.
Yeah, and our process is,
Yeah,
our process at the end of it, and, you know, if it goes forward, there is a specific finding of facts which will detail any conditions. And I believe that was the list that Nina was putting together, that, you know, it's approved under the following stipulations. And while that isn't completely set in stone yet, that's what we're trying to develop,
Okay.
is that half dozen or more items like non-amplified music and
Yeah.
the soft lighting and the things that we've been discussing.
yeah, yeah. Those are things I prefer in there, too. I'm
Right.
just saying, as a neighbor.
So
yeah,
any changes to that, they'd have to
No,
come
but
back to the
can-
planning board.
But can I
Okay.
get a clarification on the, we said 50 max, but yet I heard 6 bigger ones, like 70, and I don't understand.
Okay, so I believe this is where we muddled our application in wanting to do larger, having the ability to do larger events. But what I'm hearing is that the condition use that we would be agreeing to is nothing more than 50 people. Anything over that, for the purpose of this application, correct me if I'm wrong, would have to get a special permit.
So even the
Okay?
70 that you're talking about, anything over 50, yeah.
Again, if it was 52, I just didn't, I don't want to lock ourselves into, but again, we can't really fit more than 50. So, again, correct me if I'm incorrect, but we were trying to lump those two things together, but they're saying that they should be separate, and that would be,
And the
that's fine.
special event, larger event thing is 1 per 4 months. 1 per
Right,
120 days.
and that's separate from this
Yeah.
Would be
application.
separate
one
from
per
this
120
application.
days.
It would have-
That's what the town allows.
Yeah.
That you would allow the non-anthem to apply for, correct?
Oh, yes.
And they
Yeah.
can-
Yeah.
or
Okay,
Black
and I
Rock
guess
Farms
then
can
it's
apply.
So that's where the clarification needs to come in. We were trying to lump
Yep.
those together.
Yep.
And they're asking to separate
And we'll
them.
have to have some discussion as to frequency,
Yes.
I think,
Okay.
to go into the application.
We haven't decided how
Yeah.
many events yet. We'll work that out.
The number of-
But basically, for a larger event, the planning board will not have jurisdiction if we follow these conditions. They would apply to the town under a separate permit or anything that was over that.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
So I'm Stacy Town. I live at 317 Goose Rocks Road, which I think I'm the closest abutter to Helene.
What was your name again?
Stacy Town.
Thank you.
I think you guys have a letter that I sent to the town in front of you, so I basically have that in front of me, so I don't feel like I have to read the whole thing. But part of it was, which I think has been addressed, that they propose to have an unspecified number of events between June and October, and I feel like that's starting to be, but I'm still a little unclear again with, so the non-anthem can apply for one larger event, but then Helene can also do the same thing? So what I'm
No.
trying to figure out is like, so, and maybe you can, you know what I mean, Tina? I don't see,
Black Rock Farm can.
Thank you.
yeah, sure.
So it's my understanding, again, I think we muddled the two conversations of
Yeah.
wanting to be able to have the ability to do a larger event out at the farm.
Yeah.
So that's why we put the cap of 6, meaning 2 every, in a 30-day period.
Yes.
But what they're saying is that for the non-anthem, we would only, under the conditions of this application,
Yep.
to do events that are under 50 people.
Right.
If we were to go before the town planner and go into permitting, we would be able to apply for a special permit one every 120 days.
Right, okay. But that
And
would
then-
still allow Helene, you could still have
Well,
your
she's
event separate from the Nonana.
No, it's
Sh-
only
her
two
dog-
for the premise.
So
It goes with
Elaine
the
would be
property.
the applicant.
Goes with the property.
Right. It goes with the property. For the special event gatherings, those permits are tied to the parcel itself.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then they really. But the Nonana,
Whichever
the
one wants
Nonana
to
wouldn't
apply,
be-
but there's only 3 per year, technically, less than 3.
so the
20.
Nonana wouldn't be able to apply for
Either
that.
one could apply,
Anyone could apply for it, but it wouldn't.
but it's not part
Specifically
of
for
this
that property.
application.
Yeah,
Right.
I get you.
Okay.
Okay, it's separate.
So, my other issue is with sound. So, my property is less than 300 feet from the venue, literally. And the only natural physical screen between my property and the venue is a brook. And within the brook, there are no large trees, it's shrubs, it's dogwood, it's alders. So, so there's basically nothing there that will provide the slightest sound barrier at all. So I've lived here at that location for almost 3 decades. And I can assure you that any sound that comes from Black Rock Farm, you can be clearly heard at my house. On any given day, you can, like Jen said, you can hear people talking in the greenhouse. And I think that goes coming from my property over to Black Rock. So, yeah. But, and again, this isn't, they've been nothing but wonderful, respectful neighbors to us, so. But, like I said, that's my concern, is the sound.
Well, that
Because
is
there
why,
no-
that's why we're thinking of a condition that limits these events to acoustical.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are also ways for manipulating that, even if it's too loud.
Yep.
You can talk to Helene and talk to the Nonantum.
Yeah,
And
I
sound
understand that. I
engineers can
understand that.
find a way of moving stages,
Yep.
putting in buffers.
It's directional
But
too.
these are the concerns that I had, that's all.
I-
And it's not
My
meant to-
stepson
to
is a
bash them.
sound engineer, and believe me, I've heard it all.
Yep.
I know.
Yep.
He walks in and looks for the barriers on the ceilings and so forth.
Yep.
So,
So- But you have what I have right here in front of you, so, yeah.
Yep.
So that's it for me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, and do we have anybody on Zoom raising their hand?
We have Russ Brady with his hand up.
Okay, yeah, Russ wrote one of the letters, so let Russ in here,
Russ
please.
can speak.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And sorry for joining late. My computer wanted to provide an update with Zoom, so I joined via web. I shared a letter as well. My concern is sound, and my concern is with entry both to the property and exit on Goose Rocks Road. I shared an example of an accident that happened just last week. I'll start with that. I know the property has been there forever, and I'll echo what Stacy said and others. Black Rock has been a wonderful neighbor. I think the world of the Nonantum and Tina. But this is, in my opinion, creep of commercial into what is a very residential and very rural area. I'll go back to the traffic piece. I know the driveway's been there forever, and I know trees have grown over the years, but if you were to exit that driveway and look up to your left, I don't think you've got the proper line of sight that would be required if this was a brand new property, and I think that should be looked into. 40-mile-an-hour road, it's 400 feet, and using the town GIS site, that is that places it from what the town GIS site shows, just after the curve at Witten Hill Road. So, accidents happen there quite a bit. I know neighbors all around that area are on the fire department, myself included, and we respond. So that's a concern that I'd like to see at least looked into, even if it required clearing. But to the sound piece, this is, and I shared with you all that when we moved here almost 30 years ago, we asked if this was Kennebunkport. This was back before computers. We didn't know what town this was in. It was in the paper. and the broker said kind of, it was Kennebunkport country, and I hadn't, I didn't know what that meant. But, 30 years later, I kind of do know what that means. It's quiet, it's rural, it's residential. At nighttime, the skies are dark and the stars are clear. And it is super quiet. You can hear the ocean at Goose Rocks. We once could hear the lighthouse way over in Cape Porpoise. And so, in last year, we heard the weddings. And a couple times a year, I'll let you know that not a big deal. Sometimes you sing along to the song and you go to bed and you close your window. Frequent, that's a big deal. And when Hidden Pond was approved, I sat where you're sitting tonight on the board, and that was a big deal. And their restaurant is fully enclosed. It's a wooden structure. You eat inside, you dine inside. The noise is inside, and the nearest neighbor is 800 to 900 feet away, not 300 feet over a brook with very few trees. And for what it's worth, I am about that 900 feet away. So, the open air dining and the open air experience is concerning because there is no buffer. We hear things. And, when you think about the noise, or you think about, the things that you have to consider in the conditions for approval, it is extremely quiet. Anything different than extremely quiet is and can be substantially impactful to the peaceful and quiet enjoyment of property. And, I appreciate and always have appreciated the board working with both commercial partners and applicants in trying to find a middle ground. And it seems that that's the direction that we're looking in tonight. But sometimes I think the direction we have to look in is also towards like what exists today and what the residential neighborhood and the people around it experience today, and lean in that direction maybe first as opposed to the other. So I appreciate all that you're doing, and I missed the early part of it. I apologize. If there are substantial discussions or changes to the application, I hope that there'll be an opportunity for the public to comment once again, or an extension of the public hearing. And I missed that, so I don't know if that's the case, but I think this is something that, I think everyone in the area would like to find maybe a middle ground on. I don't know, but any change from what is rather constantly quiet and peaceful to, more frequent outdoor experiences and events will be very different than what we experience today. And it's a very rural and residential area. And I know we're zoned for just about anything out in this neck of the woods. It doesn't make sense. It's an argument for another time and another venue. But I just hope that folks consider or think about that. It's, for perspective, Nina, this is the equivalent of 50 people dining on the 15th green at the golf course, kind of close to your place. And Tom, it's, dining of 50 people in the cul-de-sac or to either side of your house, possibly every night. So that's what it feels like to me. And that is the reality that it could be for you too. So I thank you all and appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Russ, the 15th green is very close to my house, and I don't hear people out there, very rarely. What I do hear is, because I've got the river behind me and sound travels up the river, is I can hear a lot of goings-on down in Dock Square. Depends on where you are.
Hi there.
I completely agree. I completely agree, Nina. On the 15th green, there might be 4 people there. Throw 50 on there and dining and whatnot. It could be different. And yes, you're close to Dock Square. We're not, and we don't hear that. And I, just offer that it's something that we enjoy out here in Kennebunkport country.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm zoned residential too, and you're free enterprise out there, and so conditional uses are allowed. We're trying to find a reasonable solution to a conditional use at this point.
Well, she can still speak. He raised his hand again. Well, he's still connected, right?
I didn't know that. I'm used to being there with you. Yes, you are close to downtown. Very different. I shared with you the radius of, go out a mile, you find 3 businesses here. Go out a mile from where you are, and you're going to find dozens, if not close to 100. I get it, Nina, and I appreciate what you're doing. It is different out this way, and finding middle, we're zoned for it. It doesn't mean you have to approve it. And finding middle ground's always a good thing to do, but just, it is awful quiet here, and that's wonderful. It might not be the case where you are, and that's, by virtue of how close you are to hundreds of other commercial businesses.
Yeah. Okay,
Am I good to go?
Okay.
I think you can go now.
Hi there, I'm Ashley Baker Cook. I live at 333 Goose Rocks Road, and in full disclosure, I'm also Helene's daughter-in-law. And I'm also one of the weddings that has happened at the farm. I got married there on June 29th, 2013, and our best friends got married there June 18th of 2022. So I was in both of those weddings. And I think that something that I appreciate all the conversation about setting some conditions. I think that in trying to, set more conditions, Tina has admitted that we don't want to muddy the waters, but I think she didn't want to have this conditional permit limit and not allow Helene to be able to do other things, which is why she wrote it in the way that she did. She didn't want it to exclude her from still applying for those 120-day permits, and I think that's why she wrote it the way that she did. I don't want to speak for her, but, my mother-in-law is nearing retirement age. I won't tell you how old she is because she's my mother-in-law. I don't want her to disown me, but she owns a landscaping and greenhouse business. It's a really labor-intensive job, and if we can find a way for her to be able to keep this land and be a steward of this land and not be breaking her back every season, because this is an income stream that allows us to keep the character of the land, that's really important to me. She lives there. She doesn't want to have a giant band playing every weekend either. I live across the stream too. I don't want to hear it every weekend. But I do want to look out my back window and see her back field full of birds and pollinators and the fox that I saw there this morning. I don't want to look out my back field and see another development of 25 houses. And so if we can find a way to come up with a plan that will allow her to keep all of her pastures and fields and forests and wetlands, she's got 40 acres. If we can find a way to make an income stream that allows her to have some more events out there and not be toiling in the fields, I think that that is something that would be in keeping with the character of that area. It is a free enterprise zone, and the conditional use could allow a dog kennel. I don't want that either. So I just think that, with a little bit of common sense limitation, we could definitely get there. And I don't want the limitation to completely negate Helene from also being able to have an occasional event like mine and like my best friends, which were lovely events with DJs where we alerted the neighbors well ahead of time, followed the noise ordinances. There's a noise ordinance everywhere for a reason. I don't think we need to add, we don't need to add that it's 10 p.m. in this permit, because that's already a rule. You know what I'm saying? We don't need to add things that are already covered by other rules. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Online?
Any more hands raised there? No more hands raised. Okay, so I guess we can.
Can I say one thing?
Oh, absolutely.
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
So if I'm gonna be going if I'm gonna be going for the, individual permits
Yes.
okay, so that means that this, I remember at one point, Nina, you said, no disc jockeys, no band?
Well, that
Because- but
would
that-
be under the special permit, that would be decided by the town,
Yeah,
not by us.
The town, the various town employees that are in the ordinance, they would look at your application and determine, okay, what that impact is, and they might offer conditions. But historically, I mean, I don't think we've ever put any limitations on Circus Smirkus or any of those other ones that came before us, but.
I just don't know how we can have a wedding without a,
Tent
some
and a
dancing.
DJ.
Right.
Yep. Yeah,
That-
you could,
That's not going to be in this
Right,
application.
that's not part of this, is it? Yeah.
Okay, so the special permit, you'll be going to somebody else for the permit.
okay.
And as Galen just said, they haven't put limitations on it.
Okay.
yeah.
Russ is, okay.
Okay.
Hey, thank you. And I know these aren't meant for banter between the public and comments, but Galen, is there a noise ordinance in town in Kennebunkport?
Yes, there is.
All right, I don't see that on the ordinance. When you type in noise ordinance on the ordinances link in the town site, I don't see it, so.
It's under chapter, it's 246. It's under your performance standards for sound pressure levels.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the code enforcement office does have sound measures available to read decibels for enforcement purposes. So,
And it would be the code
Appreciate it.
enforcement office that enforce that.
yes, that's correct.
That's where they get their name.
Okay, so
We got another speaker?
we got, you wish to speak again, certainly, sir.
The term quiet and rural area used to exist in 1950. It no longer does now.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Gotta go north.
We left that behind.
okay. Anyway,
Ever since Bentley's moved in.
Public hearing?
I think I want to close the public hearing. So I'll close the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, now we need to come up with how we want to handle the details here.
Right, I gave a list of conditions. The one thing we certainly haven't decided is how many events
Yes.
would be allowed. And this is a summer type of project that you're going to be going for in this application. So I'm not sure, how many events you would like to, that would be the maximum, basically.
What would you think would be realistic?
How many months are we looking at?
1st of May to the
Well,
15th of
About
October.
4 months.
Initially, it was mid-June to early October. Is that still it?
Yeah, June to July, July to August. 4 months.
Yeah, 4 months.
So would 2 a month be about right?
We were hoping, for this coming season, yes, that would be
Okay.
totally fine. And then if we could come back and revisit that, that would be wonderful because, I would hope to have one a week if we could. But again, if it's a conditional use for this coming season, then we're happy to agree to that. Again, this is a 2-year term with Helene and the farm for us.
Okay, all right. So if we limited you to a maximum of 8, that would be reasonable, of 50 people, acoustics, and the other conditions that I put in there. Okay. That would be something that, when the findings of fact will be recorded and you'll be limited to those conditions.
Okay.
There's nothing to stop you from coming back. Hidden Pond did it 4 times to change those conditions. But let's see how it goes with the abutters
Okay.
Yeah.
and see how it works out. And then for larger events, there's always the special permit, which you could apply for, or Helene could apply for that particular property. So,
Thank you.
reasonable. Anybody else?
One thing that gnaws at me a little bit, Russ brought up again the concern that, Nina, you said you put aside relative to the safety of that road.
Traffic,
And I wondered if it would be possible to get the police chief to weigh in on that issue. We would ask for an expert opinion. Would he be the right?
Don't we normally have a traffic engineer or somebody who goes out there and looks at the site distance?
Yeah, so when a curb cut permit application is submitted, normally it is the code enforcement office, the police chief or its designee, and then it's the public works or its designee. And they go out to make sure that, and the fire department as well. So they make sure that everyone's comfortable with the site distance for what's being proposed.
And Russ has said in particular, he thinks maybe there's a tree or, some visual obstruction. So I thought it wasn't as simple as well, I'm just saying what I heard.
I know
Yeah.
what you heard there.
But rather than us saying, well, I looked at it, I'd like to have an independent look and,
Yep.
I think I don't want to
Given
go spend a lot of money
that-
on this, just have an expert.
But given that it's just the van going up
Yes.
with the people, it's not like the 50 people are all coming in,
That's
not
right.
25
So
cars.
I'm not worried about a traffic study, for example, but I just think I think I heard, help me out if I'm wrong, an express concern about the safety of the people in that vehicle, the van that's going in and out.
Yes.
That people travel at a high rate of speed there. And, we're talking about an abutter weighing in on that.
And it may be as simple as not taking out trees, but trimming some bushes. If
Or
there's
maybe
one
that he
there.
says,
It's good,
no, that's a concern, but it's really not.
yeah, get an expert opinion.
Yeah, an expert
But-
opinion is
okay,
what I
so-
like.
Let me understand what you're asking. Okay, you're asking that before we grant this, that we get the police chief to weigh in on it. Is that what you asked for?
Or whoever the proper.
Or whoever?
I don't think I thought it through that clearly.
Well, we have to, if we just approve it,
I hear you. Let me think. It can't really be put in, it's clumsy to put it in as a condition, so I guess that is what I'm asking, Tom. To have it
Well, I thought I
be an
heard
additional
you,
piece of paper, like we would ask, in a home, we'd ask the
Well-
fire chief to weigh in.
Well, we
Is the
have,
turnaround okay?
we have all the other conditions that
Yeah.
we can vote on. We've identified those. I'm not going to have the findings of fact done tonight. So we can approve with the caveat that a traffic engineer or someone who looks at it goes out and says it's safe enough for events for
these- for the
shuttling.
events.
Or gives us a condition that makes it safe.
Yeah,
Then
that
that's
would
pretty
satisfy me.
yeah, so it's not just the police chief, it's a traffic engineer who would assess the traffic as if it was a curb cut. Is that the idea?
Yep.
We're gonna treat it as if it's a curb cut. We want feedback from an expert to say what modifications, if any, are necessary in order to make the sight line conform.
so we're getting a lot
So,
more
so you're
complex.
asking, you're
Well,
asking
no,
us.
no,
He's just clarifying.
it's really, I'm just clarifying, because,
So who is the traffic engineer, though? Is it a town employee, Larry?
well, I presume I know we have somebody who's an expert in this.
I'm hoping it's somebody who
Yeah,
can deal with this
I'm hoping Galen
expeditiously.
can say, we have the guy on call right now.
Galen's
And he
gonna
can
do
go
it.
out tomorrow.
Tape measure and we go out
Yeah,
and we do it.
and he can go out tomorrow.
Got a
Yes.
flashlight in the car.
That's what I'm hoping.
Wait till.
Well, how about we approve the application?
Yeah.
With the caveat, with the reservation that the traffic engineer approves the site distance and says it's safe enough, okay?
With all due respect, Helene operates a commercial landscaping business also, that she has heavy equipment that gets pulled in and out of there on a regular basis. I'm certainly not disputing anything to do with safety. I'm just
I'm
merely
not
pointing out a
expecting
fact.
this is a problem. It's
Okay.
just, we've got a respected member of the community who's an abutter, who's raised a concern in a letter, and he's reiterated it here at the public meeting. It seems like it's,
I don't think we're gonna have the heartburn, given that the fire chief already went and did a site
Yeah.
visit.
oh,
But that's
Okay.
already
And
done.
we've got a letter.
Yeah, but this is just
I
to
don't mean to be throwing
confirm.
up a roadblock
No,
at
no,
it
no,
all.
I'm just I'm certainly not objecting to anything to do with anyone's safety, because that's first and foremost. I'm just merely pointing out the fact that she operates a business that pulls heavy machinery in and out of there on a daily basis.
Okay. My question though is if the fire chief's already looked at that, is that happening for you?
Well, I don't know, I mean, it's not, the fire chief isn't quite the same as a traffic engineer, and I don't see this as a big obstacle. I mean, going out there, just, basically, you're gonna confirm that the site alignment, it conforms to current standards, right, as if it was a curb cut. That's my view. That's what you're after, right?
That's what I'm after.
Okay, and it sounds to me like that can happen tomorrow, so I think we could approve the application subject to confirmation of what modifications, if any, are required to make the, site conform to
I think we
land use.
are very reliably can be viewed as being attentive to safety concerns. And
Oh, yes,
I don't wanna-
absolutely.
I don't want to break
Got
that.
to. Yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, I'm with you on this. I'm just saying,
It's easy.
yeah, that's what I think. But it'd be nice to have it confirmed by an expert on location, yeah. So is that okay?
I think we're in agreement.
Give me that language.
Well, I propose to approve the application subject, with the conditions that you listed earlier, subject to confirmation by a traffic engineer designated by the town as to whether or not the site conforms, or the entry to the site conforms to sightline requirements as if it was a curb cut. And what I expect is, say, cut some bushes. That's probably gonna be it, okay? But basically, that's what we're after, okay?
Okay.
Confirmation of the safety involved in
Is
vehicles.
that a motion?
That is a motion. Approve the
Okay.
application subject to traffic engineer confirming what modifications, if any, are needed to make the site conform to the sightline.
I'd
And the
further
additional
discussion on the items of the conditions.
Well, yeah, the other conditions that you
Well,
already
I
listed.
had further conditions I wanted to discuss.
You did, okay, more conditions.
Yeah, and I can't believe I'm suggesting this, I really can't. But having lived on a farm in Bodenham, Maine, I respect the privacy and rural nature of parts of the state.
Excuse me.
What if, because we had a number of conditions, number of people, no amplification, number of events, but we haven't talked about the hours.
The hours?
I think she did.
Well, we did, we're
5 to
talking
10.
5 till 10. What if, this is what I can't believe I'm suggesting, what if it went 5 to 9:30?
Okay.
I'm just thinking about living out in a neighborhood. I hear music from a variety of restaurants where I live on South Main Street, and I know at 10 o'clock it's all going to turn off. I know when it's going to end. How much would it affect the enjoyment of the clients to end at 9:30 instead of 10? That's what I wanted to ask.
And why specifically 9:30?
Because it's not 10. It's earlier than 10. And 8:30 seems excessive, even though I'm usually in bed.
10's what we did at the campground.
10's what we have at Hidden Pond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we didn't have neighbors complaining about the noise, or not complaining, but anticipating.
Oh,
in the
we
same way.
did.
We did, yeah.
Concerned.
We
I
had
don't know
a
if they're
bunch of,
complaining, but
comments.
concerned.
Then I withdraw that suggestion.
I
just
take
wanted
your
to-
point,
I-
but my
I wanted
point
to
is,
think
it's
about it.
kind of arbitrary in any case, and we've got a precedent, so.
Yeah.
Precedent. I
Leave
understand.
it at 10.
I would rather leave it at 10 at this point,
Okay.
all right?
Okay, so
We
there's
need
a
a s-
there's a motion.
So I move to approve the application subject to the line of sight review.
You don't have to repeat it again.
Yeah, okay.
It's been seconded by Mike.
What we need is a second, and I think Mike just
I
seconded.
seconded it.
Okay.
So
I'm good.
all the civil engineers agree, so
Yeah.
Civilly. yes.
let's take a vote. Ed,
Agreed.
I approve.
approve?
Approve.
Approve. One of you says approve, that's good. All right, so we will have
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time and
They will have a
consideration
finding of
and
facts.
deliberation.
finding of facts at the next meeting,
Thank you.
which is May Day. So,
Mayday, yes, I feel like calling Mayday.
So, that is the end of our regular business. We have no old business. We were going to have old
business.
You do have old business.
We do have old business?
Yeah.
Sorry. We have old business.
So the planning board directed staff to get an opinion, a legal opinion regarding what is the definition of a structure from the town solicitor. And so I did reach out to our town attorney, and she did give me an opinion. She said, again, she sort of confirmed our assumptions that it is a little bit of a gray area that you're playing in. And certainly it is a prerogative of the planning board, if they would like to consider impervious surfaces that aren't fully enclosed with a roof over top as structures for the purposes of lot coverage. So that is your prerogative. She agrees that we need to update the language. We need to make it more clear. It's any impervious surface is part of lot coverage.
Man-made.
Right, right. She also she reviewed other towns in the area for what they have as definitions. And they also noticed that we exclude roads and parking areas, which normally towns include it's all impervious. It doesn't matter what it is. So she says, while she can't guarantee with certainty, like, hey, you're not maybe getting a challenge, she does sort of agree with the rationale of the planning board that that would be agreeable, especially with shoreland zoning being right there, and also that the exclusion doesn't really exclude tennis courts verbatim, even though we don't have a definition for tennis courts, but.
Pickleball.
Yeah.
Pickleball.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they are impervious.
Yep.
They are structured.
It's your prerogative. Again, it's not,
We can interpret it.
it's not as, cut and dry, but,
Yeah, you can see why there was confusion.
Yep.
Right? But
I'd love to include roads and paved surfaces.
Yep.
Parking lots.
I think they are.
We're gonna do some buttoning up of the land use code. There's a lot of
Good.
things that need looked at.
The intent.
And yes, I think the language definitely needs to be
Awesome.
Yeah.
clarified.
So I need direction from the planning board to staff so we can relay that to the applicant, because you had one tonight that he just put it on as a continuance for now.
Right, yes.
Do you want me to just tell him that, yes, you need to include that as?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay,
That'd be my desire.
okay,
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
making sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you
They got
going.
enough money.
Yes, thanks for doing that, Galen.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now,
That's old business.
that's the old business.
Yep.
The new business relates to,
Oh.
not the wording of the various amendments, but once we get those amendments in-house, what are we gonna do with it? How are we going to enforce the LD 2003?
We don't enforce.
Well, you will.
We
So
apply.
affordable housing developments are conditional use.
Yeah.
So they would come before you for some sort of approval. And we do have performance standards in there that are gonna be new language that they'll have to
Well, what
comply.
I'm saying is we either approve or we don't approve. And then, it's up to basically the code enforcement officer to enforce.
But isn't what Tom's getting at, that there might be some changes to the subdivision regs?
Right.
As a
Changes
result
to
of
the
this?
subregs.
I just briefly read all of the changes, and there was a suggested change, at least one, to the subdivision regs. How does that happen? Do we have to do that, or is the town taking care of
The
that?
town does not control our subregs, we control our subregs. So if somebody's trying to change the subregs without the planning board, they can't do it.
The only reference in the subdivision regulations was regarding, it was cross-referencing your accessory apartments. So this is what the town attorney found,
Yes.
because she's trying to clear the language up to make sure that it is
Okay.
uniform and
And
consistent.
that's all fine.
Yep.
And it's something that we have to act on because it is not a change to a town document. It's a change to a planning board document.
That's changing chapter 415, which is a town ordinance. Yep.
That town ordinance is not controlled by the town.
It doesn't go to town vote.
Doesn't go to a town vote.
Right.
Oh, okay.
We know
It
that.
goes to us.
Okay, that's news to me. I didn't know that.
Just
Ordinances
happens to
don't.
be that way, but the new businesses, does somebody on this board have to go make an editorial change to the subdivision regs and bring it back to the board, or is that getting taken care of somehow, magically?
I vote for magic.
And then once this changed, does it have to go to the voters?
No,
No.
it's not.
No?
The rest of it does.
It has to go to us, though.
Okay.
It goes to us basically to, when the town approves the rest of it, that's a point where we would have to make a change.
Once the voters approve it,
Yeah,
the voters approve it, then we'll need to adjust our language to reflect what's been approved.
It's an administrative
assuming.
change.
So it says for amendments to chapter 415 that these regulations may be amended by the legislative body of the town of Kennebunkport, which is the Board of Selectmen, and B, the planning board, if the legislative body has not adopted or amended the standards. I don't know what that,
I don't know.
Well,
what
if
that
the
means,
state
o-
doesn't-
Other than
the
we've
state-
always controlled that document.
If the state or the town does not dictate the language, then we have to.
So I thought that the town attorney just put out something that said she suggests these changes to the subdivision regs.
I told you I was voting for magic.
yep, that she had to go and look through everything to make sure it was
Yeah.
kosher through all the town code. And so she found that your affordable housing definition was out of date. So what she did was she struck out the affordable housing definition that was in your subdivision regs and just said C 240, the definition in the land use code, to make sure that it jived the same.
Was that the only
That
change
works.
that she suggested?
And then she just also put in the filing procedure, she just struck out as defined by the comprehensive plan for affordable housing. So it just says, an evaluation of the potential of a site for cluster development as well as affordable housing. And then she just struck out as defined by the Kennebunkport comprehensive plan. And then she put a editor note about the maximum number of dwelling units, not including accessory apartments. So that's again, just cleaning it up because accessory apartments are not considered a dwelling unit. So it just makes it,
So
For
those
sub-
changes
Yep.
don't hurt us. As far as I can tell, those, they're administrative.
I'm just asking, are they being made?
They're administrative changes. They are
How are
not,
they being made?
yes. Are the selectmen changing them?
I
think we-
I was under the impression from the town solicitor that this entire document was sent to the select board because they were given direction. Select board said, town attorney, look at this, make sure that we're in compliance with all the law, we're not gonna be legally
Okay.
challenged.
And
And
then,
the attorney says, here's the language.
Right.
Select board
Then-
said, yes.
Okay.
Put it on the ballot. So,
okay,
Yeah.
put it on the ballot is the aspect I'm having trouble with.
okay.
Because changes to that 418, whatever number you
415?
said,
Yep.
are not something the town votes on.
Traditionally,
Yeah,
they have.
but
They're
what-
something
what
that the
they're
selectmen
saying-
could vote on and we can vote on.
Yeah, but what we're saying is we're gonna have two different definitions if we don't align.
Yes.
So if they go through and this is approved by the voters, there's a definition which is different than the definition that we currently have in ours. If it's approved by the voters, it would behoove us to,
We may not have to.
As
What-
it, lo-
what-
as you discuss these changes,
For magic.
we could make them today and it wouldn't hurt.
Tom, I'm hearing that they've already been made.
No, nothing's been made.
oh,
They've been,
They're
they've
being-
been proposed.
They're being proposed and the town is gonna vote on them, is what I'm hearing.
Right, but the town doesn't vote on our change.
Well, I think the select board, Galen is telling us, has decided to put it before the town. If I understand the language in this lawyer's recommendation, and not that it's a big deal, because these are innocuous changes, but, and that would keep everything in sync.
the,
I don't have any problem with the town voting on these particular changes. It's just isn't consistent with what I've understood our practice has been.
Right.
That's all.
Votes them down.
Basically,
So I'm trying to get
so-
it straight in my head.
So do we want to make a motion to approve 415 changes as recommended by the town solicitor?
I think
That
that
would
sounds,
make sense.
that would solve it.
Okay,
There you go.
make a motion.
Then it doesn't matter whether the town votes on it or
No.
not. We've made the change.
There you go.
There you go.
Sounds good to me.
Oh, you're a sly
Giving
one.
us that look that
pocket
says,
veto.
you guys are crazy.
So she's right, we are.
She's not wrong.
This is what raw power looks like.
Yes. Confusion, this is what confusion looks like. It's really important to me since I've got
told you I
2
was
more
voting
months
for
on
magic.
on the board.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh, God.
you're going on vacation
So, the one thing administratively, and it's more homework keeping, for LD 2003, if the voters approve those changes, there is language in the performance standards I want to make you aware of.
Right.
That says there needs to be deed restriction language that is acceptable to the planning board. So, you want to give us direction on what you would like us to look for, or you want just staff to find some stuff and say at the next meeting, under other old business, here's what we found that you'd be fine with? So that way we're prepared for when an application comes before you, you have the language and it's chef kiss, you're done.
That would be
That's-
greatly appreciated.
I'm all for
We're
magic.
going to propose deed restriction language?
Yes.
I would want the town solicitor to give me something that can go into those deeds, so I can tell basically any contractor that comes in, this must go into the deed.
Yep.
Because I don't want to try to guess at what that language would be.
All right.
That's our homework for administratively.
I thought there was,
Yeah.
wasn't there a proposal the select board is talking about having an affordable housing committee formed? No? Did I
I
misunderstand?
haven't
that?
heard, no, did you get the email today? So that was for. a
That's the
town
housing
hall.
trust.
Oh, for the
Panel.
town hall.
That was a panel discussion, yeah.
But I agree with Nina that this is that this is legal language.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly you don't want that coming from the planning board.
It has to be solid, yeah. It's gotta be legally solid.
We'll make sure it's vetted by legal and we'll bring it to
Yeah,
you. That way you guys
okay.
are comfortable with the language
Yeah.
for when it,
Yeah.
I know you do it for HOA agreements and stuff, so I want to make sure
I
that,
still don't particularly like us
Even if
telling
you
them how to put
it
it in, but at least,
Even if you put it in the HOA, that doesn't put it in the deed. And that's very important.
All right,
And HOAs are under fire.
So
Yeah.
I would want to see.
You remember what this is going to
Specific deed
include?
language.
That language is going to include who monitors it in the event of future changes and who has to be satisfied that the price is right and that the buyer is right. And to this point, the town has that responsibility. So I don't think you want the planning board making up that language.
no, no,
I think you're hearing violent agreement here.
yes.
Please suggest something that.
Yep,
is
we will
vetted
suggest
and-
Yeah.
And that the select board will approve.
Okay,
I just want to come in and there's this thing,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, we like that.
Yep.
now,
It's not-
in terms of the first thing we were discussing, we need
Make a motion.
to make a motion that the,
That any proposed changes to 415 on the LD 2003 amendment is accepted by the planning board, is
Right.
approved by the planning board.
that's,
The ones that the select board has just approved.
yes,
We concur
we-
with those
we-
and
we approve those
We
changes
approve
for the,
so that's a motion.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Okay, second.
okay,
All in favor?
Ed,
yes, please. Great.
approve,
Approve.
one of you,
Approve.
okay. So, I think we're done.
Yep, you're done.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
I'd like to make a motion
Please,
that we adjourn.
Okay.
a second.
All
Yeah,
in favor?
favor, yeah.
Yes,
Thank you all.
Oh, so glad those other four
sick dog.
applications
Yeah.
were continued.
yeah.
We were just getting warmed up. What are you talking about?
I mean, I saw those